So, we're actually recording right now, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
So keep eating.
I'm having my breakfast real quick.
That's fine. That's
I have
fine.
three. I have three more bites.
I'm going to introduce you for a second because people should know who I'm talking to. So, Andy Hendrickson is a comedian I met uh, maybe 7 years ago, five,
Mhm.
6, 7 years ago. And obviously, this podcast is not about comedians per se, it's more about filmmakers. But I do want to expand it a bit. I figured it'd be nice to change it up, and I know you really well now. So I figured we'll talk and find out maybe the other perspective of being an artist, but in the comic sense as opposed to in the filmmaker sense. And I know you're trying to do some filmmaking stuff too, so maybe we can relate that.
Yeah.
So, all right, back into it. So
Okay, we're back.
tell us who you are and what you do, which I already explained.
So yeah, I'm Andy Hendrickson. I'm a professional comedian. I've been a full-time comedian for holy shit. Uh, in August it'll be 18 years I've been doing comedy, and then been full-time about 14 of those years. The first 3 years I was kind of screwing around, and
What were you doing while you were screwing around? What does that mean?
well, I was in Atlanta and I started doing comedy. I took a class actually. A lot of comics will make fun of you for that, but at the end of the class, you do your 5 minute graduation kind of thing in front of your friends and family. And from then, I started doing just getting on stage wherever I could. There was one local comedy club where you could go up. I think it was on Tuesdays. The Punchline. Every Tuesday, you sign up, and there was always like 20 people signing up, and they would grab two or three. I can't remember. I think it was two. So your chances of getting up were pretty slim. Uh, so back then, this was before the internet was. I mean, it was '98. People just wasn't as big, and friends would do shows and stuff, but in like bars and stuff, but it wasn't near as popular as now. Like that's kind of like half the culture now is bar shows. But anyway,
So,
so
well, that's a bit of your history. Do want to talk more about it, but I want to show a piece of your stand-up because you did a couple of things. I just went to your site, and you went to David Letterman and who's the other guy?
Craig Ferguson.
Craig Ferguson. Which one do you like better? That's the one I'll play a little bit of.
I like the Ferguson one a little bit better, even though I'm more proud of the Letterman one.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
No.
The terrific
I,
Andy
I,
Hendrickson.
I have
It does make sense, I guess, because Letterman is bigger, right?
Letterman's
right?
the more prestigious, like historically badass one to do, but I thought I had a better set on Ferguson.
Okay. So I'll play the Ferguson one a bit, and just to show, some of your stand-up, obviously.
The terrific Andy Hendrickson, everybody. Andy.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, everybody. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks so much. It's nice to be here. I'm feeling good. I started juicing, yeah. And my neighbor's a fitness person. She talked me into doing a 10-day juice cleanse. She's like, you got to do it. It eliminates all the toxins from your body, right? I made it like 2 days because it eliminates all the toxins from your body. Also eliminates all the joy from your soul. Yeah, you forgot to tell me that part, neighbor. 2 days in, I'm like, I'm going to have to eat your dog. I'm sorry. I'm starving. So I'm trying to cut back on coffee. My friend said switch over to hot tea. But something about the tea, right? It's kind of fancy. There's string involved. I won't do it. Yeah. As a matter of fact, anytime someone orders hot tea in front of me, I kind of get the feeling that they're sitting there thinking like, I'm just a little bit better than you are. Yeah. Enjoy your coffee, savage. I have balance in my life. Yeah. Namaste. Egg whites, right? It's a very British thing to drink hot tea. The Americans, we got upset with the Brits back in the 1700s. We pushed all their tea into the Boston Harbor. I'm sure you guys remember that. Yeah. I don't remember why. I went to public school, but had something to do with the tea. We got angry at the tea, then we tried to drown the tea or whatever, and then they didn't think it through. You can't drown tea. It just makes more tea. And we're like, how can we get back at those Brits with their hot tea? Iced tea. That's how we did it. That's American, right? You gotta sip your tea, you pansies. We're gonna chug it, yeah. USA, USA. Hey, let's put 6 pounds of sugar in this stuff. USA, What about B12 and ginseng in a 40-ounce can? USA. Oh my God, I'm fat. That's the history of America, right there. Yeah, thank you. Wine's kind of the same thing. I had a friend take me to a wine tasting. I didn't want to go. I ended up having a great time watching people. Something happens to people when they get into a winery. They get that first glass of wine in their hand. They feel special. They start using wine words they've never used before. Everyone's walking around sipping like, oaky. Yeah, oaky. Have that friendly wine buzz. It's nice to meet you. Where are you from? Oaky. Yeah. The lady that works there knows way too much information about wine. She's pouring for us. She's like, this one's a little bit acidic. Okay, it tastes melon. You might taste a bit of a melon flavor. Yeah. Tastes cantaloupe. Swish it around the back of your palate. You get a nice cantaloupe mix. Yeah. This last one really irritated me. For some reason, she looked right at me when she said it. She goes, I even get a hint of Asian pear. Everyone around me was buying into it. I was so annoyed. They're all like, yeah, I can taste it. Asian pear. That's amazing. Like, really? Asian pear. You're telling all of us your palate's that good you can discern the type of fruit than the continent that it came from? Tastes like you're drunk. Yeah. It's made from grapes. We did a tour of the vineyard for like an hour. Guess what I saw out there? Oh, only grapes. Yeah, didn't see a pear tree or an Asian person. Anyway. Yeah.
So how did you get on, that was really cool, by the way. How did you get on Ferguson and Letterman?
Yeah, I watched you. You didn't laugh the whole time, Vitaly.
I already saw it. By the way, I saw it several times beforehand.
Oh, several?
Yes.
Okay.
Because I tried to watch, the people are coming on my show, I watch their shit, and I don't want to laugh over it because then it'll be bad for the viewer.
Yeah. Yeah, right. No, I'm kidding. So how did I get on Ferguson? That
Letterman.
one? Or Letterman?
Both of them, you know.
Okay, well, they were... Letterman's one I've been trying to get on for about 4 or 5 years. I kept sending tapes to the booker, and I did his comedy festival, and I would try and get in front of him as much as I could. And he's a good guy. He would always kind of like give me advice, but he would never really give me any specific. I could just never get him hooked. So he ended up leaving, and some new bookers took over, and they were younger, and they were unexperieused. They didn't know, they hadn't started booking things yet. So I was like, fresh blood, man. So my roommate at the time had done the show, so I went with him, and I got backstage and I met them, and I sent them a tape after the introduction. And then it took about a year of going back and forth and showcasing for him live 3 different times and literally going around the city. There's a lot of like, I wouldn't call it miscommunication, but I'd be like, I did a showcase for him, and they were like, okay, out of that 7 minutes, show us 4.5 minutes that you'd like to do on the show. So I went around the city for like 2 months until I got every single set I did was trying to hone that 4.5, 5 minutes. And I finally got it, and I send it to them, and they're like, oh, you know what? We'd rather you do these jokes. So I was a little irritated, but I was also...
They ended up picking the jokes?
Yeah, they ended up picking up the jokes.
Oh, wow.
So they went back to the original live set, and they picked the jokes and said, we want to see these. So now it took me another 2-3 months maybe 2 months to get the jokes that they wanted, put them in an order that worked, find little segues to connect all these things, and get it tight down to 4.5 minutes. Then I finally got them that set, and they were like, and by the way, it's not like that you email them and they get right back to you. It might be a month and a half. You're like, I don't know. Did they read it? You know, that kind of thing. And they finally got back to me and said, okay, now we're going to put you on another live showcase with the executive producers. And I did that. And that one, Michael Che, who's now on, he's now on the Weekend Update for Saturday Night Live. He was on it, and like 2 weeks later, he was on Letterman, and I hadn't heard back from him. And finally, it's a very kind of delicate balance where you want to stay on top of them, but you don't want to be a pest. And eventually, finally, I lucked out. I ran into them when I was practicing the set to get it on tape for them. They were going to watch another comedian named Brian Kiley, who was going to be on the show the next night. They were watching his final run through. I was like, "Hey, I'm here. Why don't I just do this set for you now?" And they're like, "Okay." And then from there, I finally got approval. And then, I don't know. So it took a year, man. It's like,
just to interject, this is a lot of hustling. I didn't realize you had to do this much hustling to get on.
oh yeah,
This is a crazy amount of work.
it was insane. It was insane. And I had a couple friends that once I got the show, two of my best buddies in comedy told me that they had a discussion that they were concerned for my well-being if I didn't get the show because I had invested so much. I was like psycho about it. I would get up every day.
This is Letterman, right? This is Letterman you're talking about?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I would get up every day and picture myself, like visualize myself being on stage and all that crazy stuff.
Wow, you got the heart, man, I gotta say.
Yeah. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, after the show, people go, "How was that? Was that the best experience ever?" And I was like, really, it was more of a sense of relief than anything else.
Well, I mean, this is interesting. Even as a filmmaker, just knowing that you have to hustle so hard. I understand. I always knew comedians had to hustle. That's obvious. They have to go. I just didn't realize you spent basically a year of your life pursuing just this one avenue and getting in front of Letterman and actually showing up and slowly moving forward and having them know you and waiting for someone to get fired. And there's like so many things going on.
Yeah, a lot of things had to fall into place.
Well, it shows persistence. That's what it shows.
Oh yeah, it also shows a little bit of insanity, but
Yeah. What does that say on the back of your sign? Is that some inspirational words back there, or?
Oh, actually, that's the cue card from my appearance on Letterman. See, I'm still obsessed with it. Hold on.
It's on your wall. He performs regularly at the Comedy Cellar right here in New York City. Please give a warm welcome to Andy Hendrickson. Okay,
Right.
I read it for the audio listeners because
Yeah.
we have some people not watching the video portion, seeing your
Oh,
beautiful
this is
mug.
mostly video.
It's video and audio. It's a half and half sort of split between people.
Hold on.
So you got to be funny.
It'd be funny if I was just sitting there in my.
What do you mean? You don't know this is video? We're on a Skype call.
I know, but I thought you just used it for the audio.
That shows you have not listened to any of these podcasts. That's what it...
Dude, I'm busy.
I can tell. Well, anyway, now I know who I'm not following for my documentary about comedians.
That's right. So
Anyway, that's interesting. What about Ferguson?
Ferguson was a little bit easier, but it was kind of along the same lines. My buddy had done Ferguson. There was a new booker, and so I saw that as an opportunity to someone who hadn't put up their walls yet. They hadn't been jaded by 4,000 comedians emailing them constantly every single day. So the timing of that one was pretty good. I had sent her a tape or a link, not a tape, a link, and she liked it. And she happened to be in New York like 2 weeks later doing a showcase, and she threw me on the showcase, which is, just a night of several comedians she wanted to take a look at. And like the next day, she emailed me and said, "I loved it. Let's get this ball rolling." And so it happened pretty quick. That one was easy. The weird one about that was in my head, I was just, for some reason, I was just certain that I was going to do that one. And it just kind of happened the way I thought it would.
So what did that lead to? I mean, obviously, was Letterman first? Was that first before Ferguson?
Letterman was first.
So, I mean, isn't that like an automatic thing? Like, you've been on Letterman, well, Ferguson has nothing to say about this.
Yeah, it's definitely a way to, it gives you some validity, right? So
Right.
They know, okay, this guy just did Letterman. He can handle himself on TV. He had a great set. He's a pro. I don't have to worry about my job if I put him on
Right.
my show.
Right. Is it the booker who would worry about their job, basically? Like, if you crashed and burned, then the booker's also out, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's that cutthroat, but
Right.
It's they want to make sure that they have quality comics on for sure.
So, I'm chatting with you because we've been chatting about this in another sense. I'll bring it up here that I was reaching out to a bunch of comics to do sort of a documentary about comedians, right?
Yeah.
And talking to you is great because we know each other for a while now, and you have a lot of history in comedy, and you know all the players, basically. So,
I do.
But how hard is it? It sounds pretty hard, but how hard is it, in your own words, to be a comic? Do you think as hard as being a filmmaker and trying to make it in that industry, or just a whole other level of difficult?
I really don't know how to compare it to film. I do believe there's a lot of similarities. You're creating your own thing. You're kind of out on your own. You have to be a business person. You have to be your own networker. You have to be your own marketer. You have to be your own fundraiser. You have to make all your own connections. You got to create your own thing, write your own stuff, and then you got to deliver it. You got to learn a billion different things. You're your own business. You wear like 10 different hats. I've never used that phrase before, by the way. 10 different hats at least. So you're kind of a creator. You're a creator, and at least with the comic, you're a performer. I mean, in film, you're making something, you're delivering something to an audience.
I guess at least you have a support team. When you're making a film, you're never alone, really. It's impossible to be alone to make a movie. I won't say impossible, but very, very difficult to do that. You always have some folks around you when you're actually making it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
In your case, is it literally, are you the only one there? There's no someone you're bouncing things off of? There's a manager you have? There's any number of people that are around you that help you? Or you're literally a solo guy?
For me, I'm more of a solo guy. I've had a couple different people approach me about management in the past, or I've had a booking agent for a little while. I did have an agent that books my colleges. I have guys that book. They book a bunch of stuff, but they're not my specific booking agent.
But still, they book for you. So if there's a job, they will offer it to you, obviously making some sort of a cut off of it.
Yes, yeah, there are a bunch of guys like that. Now I'm doing a lot more corporate stuff.
Do you have a booking person for that too? Sort of like an agent person?
Or? Yeah, I have a handful of guys that I've put together my own. It's another thing as a comic, you got to learn how to edit video. That's nothing to you. But a lot of comics are like, huh? What do I do?
So you're learning Final Cut now? Is this what you're saying?
I know Final Cut. I used iMovie for a long time.
Don't tell that to people.
Which is, for a comic, that's all. You don't really need much. You're pretty much splicing together, stand-up clips. There's not a whole lot to it. But, I forgot what we were talking about.
Yeah, short attention span as a comic.
Yeah,
all right, forget about all that. Let's go back to your history. So you said you weren't a comic when you started in 1998. So
right.
What were you doing? And how did you just flip onto comedy? Like, why in that direction? Were you funny as a kid or something? People laugh?
Yeah. Yeah, it's always funny. I always liked stand-up. I never really thought of myself as being a stand-up. I just always liked stand-up, and I was always funny around my friends. I come from a pretty funny family. Everyone in my family's a smart-ass, pretty funny character, And so I was living in Atlanta, and I saw an ad on television. I'd moved down there after college, and I worked for the sign industry. I made signs for a long time, and then I moved from making signs into the exhibit industry, doing all sorts of graphic production stuff. All sorts of large format graphics for these exhibits that we'd put on these trade shows and ship them off, and you put them together and they become a huge.
Right. And then one day it switched in your brain. I got to go take a comedy course.
Yeah. So what happened was I Yeah, I saw the ad on TV. The truth
There's
is,
an ad on TV. Learn comedy.
no, well, actually, I'm sorry.
Be funny around friends.
It was a news report about locals, people doing
You're
this
not giving me
comedy
some
class.
credit here. That was pretty good. That was.
No, should I hold up signs for if I? I'll give that a. Let's see here.
1999.
I'll give it a 7.
Hey, that's pretty good for a filmmaker. All right, go ahead.
So, long story short is I took the comedy class, and I had left. I was doing comedy kind of as a hobby, and then I had left the exhibit company I was working for. I went to go work for this other woman who was infamous for firing employees at the drop of a hat. There's no worker protection plan down there. You can just fire people without cause down there.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, I'd been there 5 months, and I was getting pretty full of myself. And one day, out of the blue, I walked in and I got fired. And I'd never been fired from anything in my life. You know, I've always been kind of a solid worker, successful kind of guy. And I was 31, 30 maybe, 30 years old, 31 years old.
Really?
And I was, I didn't start comedy till I was 28. I'm 45.
Wow, man, I didn't realize that in your 30s. I thought it was like a whole life thing, basically, you know?
No.
Yeah.
No, so I started comedy when I was 28. I goofed around with it for about 2 or 3 years. And then I just got to notice that I'm doing your podcast.
Don't forget.
Oh, shit. But, so yeah, I'm 30. It might have been 31, and
Right.
I'm like doing this job that I didn't.
Well, you were
love.
fired.
I felt.
You were fired, right? You said you were let go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I could have stayed in the same industry. It's a very specific industry,
Right.
and I literally had that visualization of I had painted myself into a corner. Like I just pictured myself with a roller, and I'm like, I got nowhere to go in this business except for maybe in sales, and I don't want to be a sign salesman the rest of my life. You know?
Right. That sounds terrible.
So I gave it some serious thought, and it was hard, man, because you get trained your whole life. At least for me, the family I came from, they weren't too strict, but just society, I think, is like trains you your whole life. And that mold's changing a little bit, I think, these days. But you go to high school, you get good grades. You go to college, you get good grades. You get a job. You work your way up the corporate ladder. You know, you get a wife and kids and da-da-da-da. You work for some company, and then you retire. And, you know, I had that program in my head. And
We all have that program, man.
yeah, I think everyone does. So
even now, I look back, still programmed, basically, like you're saying. Like, did I fuck up?
Right.
Did I mess everything up? Should I have been at my nice, cozy job, sitting there, having
No.
health insurance?
No, you shouldn't have.
If
That's
you say
boring.
so. It is boring. I agree with you there.
I have a lot of friends that have done it. I have a lot of friends that have done it different ways, and they're happy. But I have a lot of friends who are like, I mean, I had a friend. I'm not going to say his name.
Say his name. Call him out.
It was like a couple years ago. I didn't talk to him in like 6 months. There's no problem with language on this podcast, right?
No, you can curse. Curse like a sailor.
I hadn't talked to him in like 6 months, and I just get a text out of nowhere. It's like, don't ever fucking get married and have kids. And
Was that for me?
that was for you. Because you did the right thing. But I mean,
Oh, jeez.
he was frustrated, let's just say. Anyway.
What's his name? Was he a comedian?
No, that's what I'm saying.
Oh, he works at a standard corporate job. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, he gets to work out of his house. That's probably why he was going crazy.
Yeah.
But
that's tough too.
anyway, it's fine if that's what you want. But you're programmed to do that, right? So for me, it was like I had to like basically everything I'd been doing my whole life. I had to throw that all away and start over at the age of 30. And so I called up the old sign company that I used to work for. They had like 5 locations, and they were happy to have me back. I was kind of like overqualified. And they gave me part-time work until I was able to slowly but surely make enough connections on the road and phase out a regular job, and then I went full-time.
That's kind of good. So you did have a transition period there. You didn't just go cold turkey, meaning like straight into it, become homeless,
No.
go on the comedy circuit while living out of a car, which I've heard stories like this, of course, and I'm sure you have.
Yeah, I slept in my car a few times, but it wasn't because I didn't have a place. It was because I was on the road and I didn't have a place. You know what I mean?
That's different.
It's a little different. I had a home to go to. I ended up, so I was living with a girl in Atlanta, and I think she thought the comedy was going to be a kind of a hobby or something, and I went full time. And back when you first start out, it's really hard to make any kind of decent money. You know, I would be emceeing for like $200 a week, and by the way, it's still the same pay. 18 years later.
Where's the union? Where's the comedian?
There's no union, man. We're screwed like that. But so I was really broke, and you have to work a lot just to kind of like. I had some CDs made of like a 25-minute set that I did just so I could have something to sell, so I could make a little extra cash. And if anyone's listening, they have one of those, send it to me and I'll buy it back from you. And have a burning one day.
I thought you were going to offer another CD to sell, but you're giving them money.
No. I'll buy it back from you. Or I'll give you my new CD. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
But
I'm happy to help you sell CDs here. By the way.
yeah, that girl and I split up because she couldn't deal with the career.
Big surprise.
It was gone all the time. And I ended up moving back in with my mom in my 30s, from like 32 or 33 to like whatever it was.
Well,
what
did your
years.
mom? I mean, you moved back with your parents or your mom, and was she like, "Are you fucking crazy?" What did she say?
Yeah, my mom was pretty supportive.
Huh.
She's the prototypical sweet, doting mom. I love you no matter what. Supportive. I'm lucky that way. And my dad was married to another woman, and he was a little like, he's a Navy SEAL, so he doesn't understand the arts. He was kind of like, what?
What are you doing again?
What are you doing with your whole, what? And he wasn't really, he never said anything, but I don't think he wasn't very, he never said anything.
Or he never was like, what the fuck are you doing? You're wasting your life.
Right.
At least I have one good kid, because I know on your stand-up routine, your brother
was also a Navy SEAL.
Navy SEAL and a business degree, right?
Yes.
Right, and as you mentioned, you're the loser in the family.
Kind of.
I figured I'd bring it up.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. You can slide off now.
So anyway, so your mother was supportive though, so you didn't really feel that pressure to like get the fuck out of the house type of a thing. It was like, stay as long as you need.
Yeah.
And do what you have to do. I mean, I agree with your mother, of course. And I think my mother would do the same thing. Luckily, I also didn't ask permission when I left my job. I was like, just one day, hey, Mom, by the way, I'm quitting, because I used to work at Bloomberg, big company in the city. And
I've heard of them.
Yeah, I quit them, and I was like, well, I'm going to be a filmmaker full-time now. So it wasn't a question. I didn't ask. I'm sure you didn't ask permission, too. Just went and did it, and my mother basically said, all right, whatever. Well, you can still live here. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. So I lived in my mom's house for 4 years, almost 5 years, but I was just on the road constantly, like just getting better at comedy and making all those connections. And then 2007, I had saved up a little bit of money, and I was doing colleges, which pay much better than a lot of the other stuff on the road. And I was able to finally make the jump to New York. And then you get to New York, you've been doing comedy, 7, 8 years, and I was headlining a little bit on the road, and you get to New York and no one gives a shit. You're starting all over. And I remember my friend Jesse would always say, dude, New York, it takes a good 3 to 5 years to get yourself in and get into the clubs and get people to know you. That's just how it is. It just takes time. And I was like, no. And I remember like being real excited to go to the Gotham Comedy Club Christmas party. And my friend Nick took me there, who's kind of a bigger name comedian. And then he left, and I didn't know anybody. And I got a beer, and I kind of sat behind the plant and just like waited for someone to come in that I knew, because I was just nervous to talk to people. It helps to be really outgoing in comedy, and I didn't have that for a while.
Are you that now? I don't know. I don't know if you still are that.
I don't know if I am. I'm a little bit of a... look, I'm much better now than I was.
Right.
But when you're a new guy in a new city and you're not in any of the clubs, no one knows who you are, it's a little different. When I came out to LA, now I live in LA, I already had some credits. People already knew who I was from New York. It was a little easier to make that transition, you know.
Right.
So
was it worth it?
No, I'm probably going to kill myself after this podcast. So I'm going to stretch it out so I can get my gun hand ready.
Just another dead comedian.
This would be, you probably get, you know what? It would be beneficial to you if I kill myself now.
That's why I'm contacting you at this critical
thing
moment.
I did right before I died is your podcast.
I hope not. I hope not. Well, I mean, let's get to the good thing. You are a working comedian. You've been on a bunch of cool shows, and you're booked all the time. It's not like you're not working. You're working all the time, obviously.
Right. Yeah.
So was it worth it? That's still a valid question, I guess.
Absolutely.
Are you happier doing this than what you were doing before?
100%.
Maybe 20 years or so ago, right? 15 years ago.
Yeah. It was when I think back, you don't really stop and think about it. But if I think back to all the crazy shit I did,
let's talk about
driving like 16 hours, just like I remember I drove from Atlanta to La Crosse, Wisconsin, 16 hours, and I had like I had like maybe 10 minutes it was to get checked into my room, hop into the shower, and the gig was in the hotel, and go after driving 16 hours and go be a part of open up a 2-man show. Dumb stuff like that, just crazy long drives across the country, driving through snowstorms. I've definitely almost died 4 or 5 times. I think every comedian on the road has some experience with travel where they've almost died, you know. That sounds a little dramatic, but it's true. But super insane long drives, performing in front of like people that don't want you there. A million of those kind of like just super shit gigs. One time I had an owner go up on stage after me and apologize to the people how bad my set was and offer tickets to come back for next week. There's more of a story to it than that.
Was your set bad?
Yeah, I was in Paducah, Kentucky doing comedy in a bar that was a converted steel warehouse. There was a biker gang. The cops had came in and nabbed some felon during the feature act set. It was not my crowd. Wasn't my demographic.
But you did book the job, so you knew where you're going.
Well, this was one of these bookers. They book what they call one-nighters, which are pretty infamous, where you go, say, this was a run through mostly Tennessee, where the guy was, you start like a Tuesday in Clarksville, Tennessee, and then Wednesday you do somewhere else at a bar near a military base, and then Thursday you go to Paducah, Kentucky, and you do this bar.
I got it.
He put you on a little run. Roadhouse, right.
Have you ever been in a bar fight? Have you ever been in a bar fight because of your comedy?
No, but it's gotten pretty close. I know some comedians who have.
How do you
there's
take
a lot
heckling?
of times we don't feel safe. You just have to really kind of, it's like a, very almost like animals. You got to kind of be like, I'm the dominant one here. I'm going to say some shit and put you in your place and hope that you don't kill me.
Have you ever had a heckler just go insane on you?
I've had a lot of weird shit. I've had guys stand up on the stage with me. I've had different nights where...
Do what? They got up on the stage and did what?
Well, one time I'm thinking of a guy when I was in Ottawa, Canada, which is a Canadian Canadian city, but it's in Ontario, where there's near Quebec, where there's French-speaking guys, and this guy got up and started speaking like French on stage, but he was a gentleman. So I wasn't scared for my life or anything, but it just was weird. And so he just kind of stood up and started talking, and then I was like, so I just started going, all right, what do you want to say here?
What did he say?
I can't remember. It was some weird shit in French, and the crowd kind of half got it. It was actually at a company party too, which was weird.
Right.
So I'm trying to think of anywhere.
You know,
like,
this is what actually I think is wrong. You know, it's one thing not to like somebody's. It's like in film. One reason I do like it in terms of when we're shooting it, at least I don't have someone coming right into the middle of the movie and ruining it. Except New Yorkers, of course, they're always yelling when you're filming, but no one's like taking over that scene and acting for the other person or whatever, you know, and getting up in our sort of stage, of course. But for comedy, for some reason, it's acceptable that some moron could get up in the middle of a set and go interfere. I don't understand why that's...
A million things wrong with comedy as far as like I don't feel like it's a respected art form, even though I really do think it is an art form. We don't have our own union. We don't have... Exactly. It's a live performance where for some reason, different than musicians, different than everything else, although I'm sure musicians have dealt with some shit too, but where...
But no one goes to a musician, I could play that guitar better, and takes it over. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Exactly. Because they can't, probably.
No, of course not.
So it's a weird thing. I don't really think there's anything else like it.
Well, it is a slight disrespect because they don't think. I think some people. I actually believe comedy takes a lot of effort, especially in film. When we try to do comedy, that's harder to do than a drama. You know, to make something funny is really difficult. To make a lot of people laugh, to make them cry, you know, you can always pull those heartstrings with music and cutting and someone crying. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and some menthol under the eyes makes you cry a little.
I think it's easier to pull off a drama than it is a comedy. It's just really hard to make people laugh. So it is an art form, you know.
It definitely is. I don't feel like it's respected as it should be. Like you said, people don't understand how much time and effort goes into it.
So what's your process? How do you write a joke? And that sounds loaded, maybe, but is there a process you have?
Yeah, for me, it's changed over the years. Some people use their laptops and blah blah blah, but for me, the best thing to do, I get very OCD, or not OCD, but very like ADD kind of distracted. And see, I'm so distracted I can't even say.
Yeah, you're like, what are we talking about?
But I do get a little OCD too. But so for me, the best thing to do is normally if I get I'll be living my life. Like for example, I went to the zoo with my girlfriend, and she's from France, and she started apologizing to all the animals. I'm sorry, you're so beautiful, you're such a wonderful creature. Don't worry, there is karma. I love you, giraffe. Like that's what she was doing.
Did you tell her we're part of the problem? We paid the money for them to keep them there so we can watch them?
Exactly. There was this weird catch-22,
right,
which is another thing I thought of. So just like you. So to me, I went in my phone and I have a little notes section, and I just was like, girlfriend talking to the animals, you know. And then so what I'll do is sometimes I'll bring my phone with me because I record all my sets, and I'll go back and listen to a very specific part. Like I know I said this new joke that way, and I'll work on it. So what I'll do is I'll take my notebook to the coffee shop. I usually walk to the coffee shop. I take a notebook with a pen. Most times my most effective writing is if I leave the phone at home, though. I'll jot down like, okay, I'm going to work on maybe these subjects. And I just bring a pen and I sit there at the coffee shop for an hour, 2 hours, and I just work and I just write. Sometimes it flows out of you like, boom, you're like, I'm on fire today, man. And then other times I'll spend the whole time working on one 15-second joke or 30-second joke where I'm like rewording and trying. I'll write probably like 10 different versions of it, and I'll put a bubble around the one I like the best.
You have a thesaurus around with you? Is that really what you're doing?
Yes, exactly. I use the thesaurus a lot.
Well, you know what I mean. Change it up a little bit. Change the wording because that matters.
Well, it's like there's like you start to learn. There's like little patterns start to form. You've been doing comedy for so long. You're like, okay, I know. For example, the best jokes, the punchline's right at the very end. If you have a punchline and 2 words after, it's not as effective as the punchline right at the end. So you know that, and then you're like, you can just feel it. Like it's really like a word puzzle or a puzzle piece. You kind of start putting everything together and going,
Right.
duh, duh, duh,
It's
and
a
then
good script. It's a good script.
yeah, and then
Yeah.
half the time you have to. And here's the difference. At least with comedy, I can go out and test it out, and I can go, oh, they reacted to that part, but I didn't really think about this part of the joke in that light. Now that I saw how the crowd reacted, maybe if I switch these words around or try it a different way, and then you hone the joke and you get it just right. And that's the great part about being a comic in New York. You can go out and do 3 spots in a night. You can start off with a joke, and you do that, 4 nights a week. By the end of the week, if you focus on that joke, you either know you can throw it out or wait a second, I got a good 2-minute chunk here or whatever it is. And it's like I see with
that's good.
filmmaking, you
That's
write
good.
something and you shoot it, and
You wait 2 years.
you don't know. You don't know. How do you
No,
know?
you got to wait 2 years until it's edited and post-production, and then you put it out, and nobody wants to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I used to think,
You're making me want to switch right now.
yeah, well, I used to think I'm writing my own sitcom now, and I'm working on a second sitcom. I told you about that documentary I'm probably pitching. I actually did pitch it to somebody.
Well, you mind chatting about that since you brought it up? So I know
As long as none of your filmmaker friends steal it.
well, keep whatever
So-
you want private, of course. But anyway, it was my idea to do a documentary. You just started riffing off of my ideas.
Right.
so
No.
tell me, what is your documentary going to be about?
My dad was, and his friends were the original. They came up with the concept for the first Iron Man in Hawaii, and they actually participated in it. I've done a lot of research since I last talked to you about it. There's different stories, but the version that I like and that I've heard from a couple different sources is that basically they were at this relay race award ceremony. It was when we lived in Hawaii when I was a kid. And they're having a few beers, and they start talking about all the long-distance races and kind of like one-upping each other. And there's some guys that they had just lost to in this relay race, and they say, why don't we combine all these races and do them as a relay? My dad says he's the one that was like, no, fuck it. One guy does the whole thing. And then his buddy, John Collins, was like, ran with it. And within 2.5 months from that time, that was in early December, mid-February of the following year, they did the first Ironman triathlon, which is a 2.2 rough water swim, 2.2 miles swimming in the ocean, 112 miles on the bike roughly, and then a marathon, 26 miles. One guy does all of it. Nothing was like even close to that back then.
No, that's amazing. Actually, the more you tell me the story, the more I like it. And it's just a matter of, obviously, no one's going to steal it because you have connection to your father, first of all. Your father's never going to go behind your back, right?
Yeah. So, and it was totally random. I was at the airport. So the first race, there was 15 people, 12 people finished.
Right.
And I was at the airport coming back from a gig, and I overheard someone saying, yeah, blah, 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 blah. They were talking about running and this and that. And then she was like, what was that? And he goes, well, the first one had 15 people, 12 finished. And I was like, what the hell? I turned around. I was like, excuse me, sir. And it was one of the original Ironman guys. And he knew my dad. And
Cool.
And that's what got me thinking, like, man, he was such a unique guy, this guy. He'd run across America, raised over like $2 million for his charity by literally in his like 70s running across the country.
So when are you doing this? Is this something, or are you just trying to pitch it right now?
Well, I pitched it to my friend's brother. I mean, my brother's friend. God, I'm still waking up. My brother's friend who works at ESPN. He doesn't work in that department, and he was supposed to run it by someone. at the 30 for 30. And I haven't heard back. So
It's perfect for 30 for 30, by the way. Just like absolutely perfect.
yeah, I need to follow up. I'm going to write that down and follow up.
There you go. See, aren't you happy at a podcast chat
Well,
with me?
because I also have met a few guys that have a couple production people. Actually, some of the guys how we connected, they have their own production company now.
I feel something what you're talking about, you can go directly to the people who make these things because this is right up their alley. This is exactly what they would do when they would pay you for it or fund you for it, for you to go and do it, you know?
That's the thing I don't know exactly, like how much they would trust me. I have the story all in my head exactly.
Listen, when you're ready, you come to me. We'll work out a whole team. Don't you worry. We'll get everybody involved.
I mean, there's not a lot you can't really control the story, but what you do is you know what the story is. You go in and interview these guys and ask them the questions that you need to ask, and see how the story comes together. Get as much footage as you can, as much memorabilia from the event. And talk to all these guys before they all die, man. I mean, one of them's already dead.
That's true.
There's an interesting story with that guy, too. So, to me, part of the story is not just these guys and what they did. That's definitely part of it. But another more interesting part to me is a kind of like an individual. Like a lot of these guys went back and did it again. My dad went back and did it when he was 50, tried again when he was 58. Some of these guys have done all sorts of crazy stuff.
Right.
They're interesting people.
Yeah.
And so, and they're getting older, and they're part of this kind of that there's the next generation, which was my grandfather.
Well, let me give you an idea, because I think if you combine what's going on right now with Iron Man with, you can ignore this idea, but with the past and how they started it, sort of show the progress of Iron Man, and maybe even chat with new people who are part of it, and like the superstars of it right now. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Whoever they are. I'm not sure who they are, but I think that's all. I think if you can relate it all together, then you've got something that's very marketable for a 30 for 30. And, maybe that's what the executives there will tell you anyway,
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Part of me is
or
like,
don't listen to me. I'm not a producer for television, so.
How hard would this? I mean, okay, so we're this is an interesting podcast now. So you're a filmmaker. How hard would this be to do on my own?
On your own, you need to fly. The expensive part for you to do this by yourself, meaning if you want higher quality than you just filming everything, is that what you're talking about? Or are you filming everything and interviewing everybody?
If I got a really a decent, I don't need a red. I mean, I've shot.
No, it's not even camera. You're mistaking just personnel, because if it was you, let's say a producer, let's say you can get PAs locally, maybe even camera people locally, or usually you travel with a DP. So it's like 3 or 4 people who always travel together. So if you add that budget up, and how many places you have to go, and how many hotels you have to stay in, and how many people you have to feed, you'll know roughly what it is. And to shoot any real documentary takes usually a while. But in this case, if you just need the data between 15 people, 14 people, a day or two per person, 30 days, because I'm counting like 15 days plus some travel, plus some other things that happen,
Couldn't I do this kind of solo? Get a good camera.
You can do the solo, of course, but then you're responsible for a lot of things that you probably don't want to. If you're trying to save money, it'd probably be better to you do it almost all by yourself, legwork wise, and then you get a DP or just a camera guy in each location that can at least make it maybe not beautiful, but get the information in the can. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's where that would be my weakness, because I don't know exactly how to do all that stuff. I could learn.
Oh, no. Yeah, you shouldn't do camera and sound. You should get a camera guy and a PA, which could be affordable where you're going. You don't have to fly them around everywhere and put them up in hotels because they're local to wherever you're going, hopefully, And you could save a fortune in that case. This has turned into the DP Advice podcast.
Yeah, well, no. I mean, I guess this is probably stuff that people are interested in talking about, right? I don't know.
Yeah, some of them.
I don't know who listens to your podcast. It's probably just your mom. Hey!
Hi, Mom.
Yeah.
It's mostly, sick people.
Yeah.
Sick in the head type of people.
Sick. Yeah, so just like you.
So anyway, let me switch gears. Are all comics, this is back to comedy, but are comics, I've dealt with enough to know that they're notoriously, maybe you're the more normal one, but they're notoriously a little bit insane and unstable people. Is this an accurate portrayal of comedians?
Yeah. I don't know if it's like.
Are you crazy and I just don't see it?
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's like nature versus nurture kind of thing, right? Did they start off crazy, or does the business make you crazy? It's a little bit of both, I think, because you are your own product. It's kind of an insane thing. So, like, if you're like, hey, do you want to book me on your show, or do you want to book me in your club for the week? And you get, I mean, there's endless rejection. It's nonstop. You just, like, I've been doing it so long, I just get used to it, you know?
It doesn't faze you. When people say no to you, you don't even care anymore.
I don't give a shit anymore. I'm just like, whatever, man.
It still hurts me.
Yeah, I'm just like, okay, well, that's fine. Then that's not meant to be. For whatever reason, we don't connect, or what, that's not going to work out. That's cool. I used to push really hard for a lot of different things, and it's also a little bit. I've had some success, so I don't need some of the things that I used to. I don't need to take some of the gigs that I used to have to take. So that's good too. But I think because you're your own product, you're selling essentially yourself, and it's a very personal thing that a lot of us do up there. You're talking about your life, and some people just do like Seinfeld type observational stuff, but I personally talk about my life and put a lot into it. And when someone's not interested in that, it's hard not to. It's just a business decision, but it's really hard not to take it personally. When you have a bad set, it's hard not to take it personally. It's you. So if I make shirts, no one wants my shirt, who gives a shit? But if I'm performing my art, which is my art is me, and no one likes it, well, shit, then they don't like me. You know what I mean? That's what makes comedians crazy.
So you're saying they get crazier as they go, as opposed to
I
being
think
crazy
so.
to go
I
into
think
the
you get
business.
more neurotic. Yeah. I think that.
Are comedians egomaniacs? Is that why they do this?
I don't know. Some of them for sure. There's some guys that get up there, they can't get off the stage. They just, even though it's fucking up the whole night for everybody, you know, they might say they're a big name comic. There's a handful of them. And it depends. There's certain types of comedians that tend to do this, but you, say it's like 3 shows on a Saturday, the comedian's supposed to do 45 to 50 minutes, and they end up doing an hour and a half. They double their time. Now there's a whole room full of people that need to leave that room, and there's a whole room full of people that are waiting an extra hour or so. They had babysitters, they had this and that, and now they got to clean off the tables, get this group in, and then the comedian goes up again, and he does it again. Then there's a third show. Now they're even delayed 2 hours. And then the staff has babies and babysitters.
Everybody's got babies in this situation.
Everyone's got babies. And there's just babies everywhere. No,
everybody's got a baby at home.
3 in the morning, and the club made a lot of money, but everyone got fucked.
Oh, you're saying the comedians got fucked, or the audience got fucked? Who got fucked in this scenario?
Everyone got fucked except for the comedian. But
no. I mean,
they have this crazy ego where they just can't get off the fucking stage.
You know, I think I told you this, but I was at a Dave Chappelle show. Well, no, I'm sorry. It was a regular comedy show, the Comedy Cellar, I believe, and Dave Chappelle
Comedy
showed
Cellar
up.
is like the best club in New York.
Yeah, it's great. It was great, but Dave Chappelle showed up out of nowhere, and I didn't see another comedian for 2 hours.
Yeah,
because he was up there just talking, and we loved it. But now that you bring it up, I could imagine there's now a whole backlog of comedians who are screwed because they'll never get the chance to perform in front of that audience, right?
Yeah. Well,
no?
Chappelle kind of gets a carte blanche.
Well, he gets a pass, obviously.
He's Chappelle. You know, Chappelle shows up. Sorry, you're fucked.
Yeah, right away. You can leave now.
The good thing about the Cellar is they'll say, all right, you know, after like a certain amount of time, they're like, well, we'll pay you. You can go home. A lot of times the comics will just stick around because it's Chappelle, you know. And that's the cool thing about the Cellar, like
right.
Seinfeld or Louis C.K. or Chappelle or, you know, all these big name comics will just drop in. Chris Rock, they just drop in and just do a set. and the comics usually go down and watch because they're, some of these guys are legends, and I'm sure that some of the other comics go down and watch and go, I don't understand what the big deal is, man. I got better jokes than that.
So you're at a good point in your career, obviously, but what is that? How do you break through that to that next level where I assume you want to be on TV, right? Is that your goal, to be sitcom or whatever it is?
To me,
movies.
I think the goal most comedians have, there's the old model, there's the 90s model where you're just really funny, and then the economy is not completely fucked after, pre 9/11, where you're really funny. Someone in show business sees you, they give you a development deal. They give you like $250,000, and they're like, "We're going to use you in something. We don't want anyone else to have you." And then they develop a sitcom, and hopefully it takes off.
Is that still going on that way?
It doesn't happen that way at all anymore. Now the new model is you got to have some of these shows won't even book, like, they won't even hire you unless you have a huge Twitter following, right? If you have a huge Twitter following, you're more likely to bring them another, say you have 500,000 Twitter. That's at least some of those are going to come watch your show,
Right.
I have like 2,000 on Twitter because I just don't. So, but nowadays you have to be good on Twitter, Instagram, whatever it is, Vine, or you got to have your own web series. You got to have your own a podcast is a huge thing in comedy. I mean, there's a lot of guys that.
Well, Mark Maron's a good example of turning his whole career around, right? Doing a podcast.
Yeah, I mean, and that guy, no one knew who he was. He'd been on Conan like 20-something times. He'd been on Letterman, had his own, specials. No one knew who he was, and people now know who he is. But
well, now he's interviewing the president in a garage, so
that's right.
Good on him.
No, he's a very intelligent guy. But so now you got to find a way, right? So plus, I don't quite understand what's going on. I don't think anyone does with network television, how everything's going online now. Everyone's like cutting the cord with cable. So even if you're on a sitcoms don't get the views like they do, unless it's like Big Bang Theory. Say you get 2 million viewers an episode. That's nothing. It used to be.
That's a lot now. That's a lot now.
That's a lot now, but it still like doesn't affect. You can be on a sitcom with 2 million viewers and go to fucking Iowa, and you're not going to fill up the room because of that show, because people get their television from 4,000 different channels now, different sources, watching stuff online.
But you're preaching Netflix to the choir. It's the same problem for filmmakers, obviously. So there's so much content out there.
Yeah, there's so much content.
Yeah.
So the good news is the vehicles are there to create your own thing and hope that it catches fire. You don't need the industry anymore to have success. You can kind of do it grassroots. But the bad news is there's no like home run hits like that anymore. There's rarely there's no one's going to take you and just scoop you up and build your career. There's a very small handful of comedians get what I call the golden ticket, where everything just kind of falls into place at the right time, where they have the talent and the right team behind them, and boom, Like Amy Schumer is a girl who's her sketches, I think her show's great. She's talented, but I knew her back in the day. She was she had her eye on the prize, man. There was no getting in, she was very focused on making things happen.
That's good. I mean,
yeah. So like,
she did make it then.
Yeah, she's huge now. And her movie was great, and now I guess she's doing some other movie with Jennifer Lawrence or something. So I don't know why I brought her up, except for that, like, things worked out great for her. Is it luck, or is it because she had her eye on the prize? It's probably a little bit of both. You kind of have to be really focused and know how to.
Well, you seem focused. Do you have your eyes on the prize, or are you like sort of it's okay if that doesn't happen?
I don't need to be. Well, for me, okay. So let's say the original goal was for me when I got into comedy was to become a big comedian, get on TV where I could develop a following, and then when I go back out, I'm doing theaters. All these people came to see me. The truth is, I have certain markets where I have a following. People come out and see me, but there's other markets I go to. No one knows who I am. You know, they come to the club because the club advertises me. They see my clips online and they go, "Oh, this guy's funny. Let's go." The tickets are half price tonight.
Free drinks.
Just depending on the market. But no, some markets I do really well in. But
well, isn't it up to you now to cultivate that audience, like you were saying? Now, the people who come out who want to see you, they're going to be your biggest fans. I don't know if you've ever read the article, the true 1,000 fans. Like that's what you need nowadays, basically, to propel your career. Did you read that article? It's something like that. I can look up the exact article, but it's basically you need a true 1,000 fans or 10,000 or whatever it is in your case to actually have a good career that makes you a good living. Because they'll support you. They'll buy your CDs. They'll go to your shows. They'll buy your T-shirts. They'll do whatever they have to do. So, I mean, that seems like you should be doing that.
There's a lot of old school ways to do it too. Like the old school ways, you go around city to city to city to city, and you're really funny. And the people that see you go, "Wow, I can't wait to go back and see that guy again."
Mm-hmm.
That was a time.
That seems like that should be the new school way.
That was kind of I don't feel like people have that much. Some of them, I guess, maybe you just really have to kick ass. But there's certain people that came up where that happened. They built this following just from the road.
Right.
Now people build a following from podcasts, Twitter.
You need other avenues now. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah.
Right. So, for me, I think I've started to learn that I'm not going to get the golden ticket. I'm going to have to create my own thing. And
so when is your podcast? When does your podcast start? Is this episode 1 for you?
This is it. I thought we were doing a podcast together.
Well, this is my podcast.
Oh, I thought this was our first episode.
This is our
Vitaly and Andy podcast.
Hey, that might be pretty good. Yes, Vitaly and Andy, not Andy and Vitaly. Okay, so it's Vitaly and Andy podcast.
Yeah. So I thought about doing a podcast. I actually was talking with my girlfriend about doing one because she's from France and she's really funny and has kind of a different outlook on stuff. But
right.
Which would be...
That's going to be terrible for your relationship. What happens when you break up? The podcast ends?
I don't know.
You got to think about that.
What are you going to do? But yeah, for me, I feel like I'm going to try and create my own show. Or I'm going to start getting onto the other end of stuff. I think comedy is always going to be the common thread for me doing stand-up comedy. But as I get older, and I've been traveling hardcore now for full-time 14 years, I start thinking, man, I have a lot of creative ideas. I'm good at putting people together. Maybe I should get more on the other end of stuff, Still do stand-up, but I know a lot of great stand-ups who write. For example, there's a guy, Brian Kiley. He's a great stand-up. He writes for Conan. He does all the monologue jokes for Conan. But he goes around at night and does stand-up and works on his act. And then they go on breaks and hiatus, and he does some stuff on the road. He works clean. He does some corporate. So he gets to do both. Once you start doing stand-up, it's kind of hard to not do it.
Right. Well, even Seinfeld's back on the road, or was back on the road, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's
There's
crazy.
really something fun about having an idea that you think's a good joke or a good story or whatever it is, and then crafting that and then taking it on stage and getting a reaction. That's one of the things about stand-up that's so different than filmmaking. You get instant feedback on your ideas. I guess you can put together a scene in film and go and kind of know, that's your feedback. You can go, okay, this is how it looks now.
That's a crapshoot. That takes a lot of months of effort for what you're saying is almost immediate,
Right. I always wondered, before I got into all this stuff, I always wondered, how does a film, when you watch a really shitty movie,
Yeah.
and you're like, how the fuck did that get made? How did they?
I
And
made
it's
a
like
lot of shitty movies.
right, you're like, someone wrote that script, someone approved that script, then they got all the money and they hired all the actors and they put all that together, and the thing is horrible. And you're like, how did that happen? Why didn't someone go put on the brakes and just go, fuck, let's scrap this shit? But
Sometimes they're too deep into it. Like, think of big budget Hollywood movies that most of them are terrible, you know?
it's like a marriage, right? So like, it's like a relationship. Once it starts rolling, you're like, well, we're in the next phase. We might as well just do this shit.
Basically.
But
when's the divorce?
it's divorce. But what I was going to say is, then I've shot 3-minute sketches. I have a great idea for this sketch, right? And I think it's brilliant, or it's going to be super funny. And like, there was one I shot. It's pretty funny. It's kind of dark, but did not come out the way I wanted it. I just couldn't control all the factors.
You mean the acting, the other actors, yourself? What are you talking about?
Yeah, it just didn't come out how I wanted. Like, the music's weird, and which I think affects the whole thing, and then the ending's kind of dark. We changed the ending because the ending was too dark, but now it just doesn't have the impact that I want. Everyone watches it and goes, man, it's like a little disturbing. It's kind of funny, but it's a little disturbing.
Right.
Basically, it's this video about a guy who's you show him with his family. You see those stickers on the back of their window, like a mom, dad, 3 kids, and a dog. So I had to get my friend and get his family and borrow his house and all that stuff. And then he finds out his wife's cheating on him, and so he scrapes her off the back of the window. And so now it's just him and his boys. Then they show him in court, and she wins custody. So now he scrapes the 3 boys off the back of the car. And now it's just him and the dog. He's petting the dog. The dog runs off. He scrapes the dog off. And so now he pulls into a field. And he's drunk. He scrapes himself off, and he gets back into the car. And you see a flash, like he blew his brains out.
Wow, that is really fucking dark.
And then you pause.
Are you a comedian?
Right. And then you pause, and then you show in the car that's actually the flash of the camera. He's with a hot chick. He's partying, and he sends the picture to his ex-wife. Ha ha ha. That's the whole thing.
I see. You ruined it. You
Why?
should remove that last bit of it and just leave. He killed himself, which at least you went in that direction, and it's dark. That punchline maybe actually ruins it. I didn't see the short, so I'm talking out of turn. But
Yeah.
if I saw that, I'd be I think moved and depressed.
So, well, the way I really wanted to end it, and the music in it's kind of weird. I trusted my friend to do the music, and he's a good guy, and they helped me make it. These guys, they shot it as a collaboration for free. So
Right.
They were working on their reel as well. So you got to give some creative freedom to the guys that are helping you. And I'm not blaming anything on the music too, but what I really wanted to do.
You can change the music, by the way. It's just an editing thing if that's what's really wrong with it.
That's true, because the whole thing's silent.
I
You're right.
mean, you could put any music you want,
I could just go remove the sound and redo it myself. God, I never even thought of that.
Okay.
Change the music. I don't know.
I've got advice. Don't become a filmmaker, because
No, no. I just kind of accepted it as it was.
No. You have that's actually one of the freedoms you do have as in post and editing, is you can change a lot of things. You can go back and reshoot a little moment of it, and it changes the whole meaning. You can take out a little clip of it, and it changes everything. So that is one powerful thing of editing and directing and telling stories in that way. There is no media gratification. You can take 6 months and make it right, hopefully.
Yeah, I'm actually editing one now where I paid the guys to do this, and he sent me a rough cut last night, and it's about a couple sexting each other, and
Right.
you think that they're in separate rooms, and at the last minute, you see a split screen, and they're in bed, and the line drops, and you realize, holy shit,
Right,
they
they're in the
were
same
in
room.
bed the whole time together.
Can you show me any of these, or these are still in process of being cut?
They're still in process.
Okay.
But he sent me a rough cut last.
Whenever it's ready, you can send me a link and I'll post it up on my
Oh,
site as
for
well.
sure, yeah. Let me write this down. I got a lot of
Okay.
stickies here after this podcast. Send Vitaly. But so on the screen, the texts are popping up. Whoop, 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 whoop. And the guy who's editing it right now is like, I think he was just showing me, hey, these are how the texts are going to look. Because the way he has it cut right now, it's like we're texting in speed mode. It goes whoop, whoop,
Oh, I see.
whoop,
I see.
whoop. And I'm like, whoa, that's
you could
way
change
too
all
fast.
that. Yeah.
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 And I think he thinks that he was telling me there's not enough scenes of us like literally sitting there typing.
So grab an insert shot, man.
Yeah. So I gotta work with him on it. But
Yeah.
that's the other thing. So do you show me what I'm typing pop up on the screen when I'm typing, or do you show me typing and then you show her and then it pops up on the screen? You can't show the words show up twice, you know? It's all this like stuff you got to figure out. But
Right. So well, let me ask you this last question.
I'll send that to you. Actually, you can give me some input on that.
Of course. So let me ask you this last question.
Yeah.
Now that you're sort of going a little bit into filmmaking,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously still do comedy, would you prefer to be a filmmaker? Well, a comedian filmmaker in terms of that? Would you prefer to be just doing your comedy in film as opposed to just doing a stand-up on shows?
If I could get it, I think if I could learn more, I really do enjoy the process of making stuff. Literally, yes, I would
Making
like to do
films,
that. Yeah.
short films, whatever it is.
To me, some of the most fun I have is the actual shoot, the actual time when you got the cameras set up. I don't like setting up the camera and the lights. I let the other guys do that. But I like, okay, what if we tried it this way? Or, you know, like I literally was crying laughing when we shot this last sketch because we had so many funny like moments. But then again,
are you saying you like directing? Is this what you're saying?
Yeah, I like writing. For me, I mean, just all I know right now is sketches, right? I'm working on my sitcom,
but you're directing these things, right? There's no
Yeah.
actual director besides you.
Well, I mean, the guys I was collaborating with I let them throw in their ideas and stuff, and they.
You got to be careful with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I mean, honestly, I do believe people don't treat, at least independent films. A lot of times, there's too many cooks in the kitchen, as they say. I'm sure in big budget too, but really one person should be leading that charge and making all those decisions. It's fine to listen to folks, but as soon as you have three people making a decision on one item, it's just not as good. It's bland.
Right.
You really got to stick with whatever vision. If it's your vision, even if they're doing it for free or for low pay, it doesn't matter. They've agreed to it. You should keep your vision going. That's what I think.
Yeah.
If I was your cinematographer, I would give you advice. I would never take over,
Yeah, no, yeah, it was definitely my thing. But they were like, what would be kind of funny is what if we did this? And I'm like, oh shit, that's a good idea.
Okay, that's fine. They're giving good suggestions then.
For example, at the last scene of the movie, the sketch I was talking about, where it's the couple, they're sexting back and forth, they masturbate, and then it's the end of the thing, and you realize, holy shit, there's a split screen. They're in the same bed. At the end of that, I had just written in the script like a kiss. You kiss the girl goodnight. You cross over that invisible plane.
Right.
Good night, and then the lights go out. Well, one of my buddy Dave was like, what if you had some kind of like, because he's married, he goes, what if you had some kind of like, said some, like you kiss her goodnight, and she goes, did you take out the garbage? And I was like, yeah, it's a good idea. So she's like, did you take out the garbage? I was like, yeah, I took out the fucking garbage. Jesus Christ, And it's really kind of
That's good. I like
an
that.
unexpected, funny ending to like this couple who just had phone sex while they're in the same bed. Then they have a little fight. So stuff like that,
So we'll end it with this. You want to be a director. Fuck this comedy thing.
Maybe. Yeah, it would be nice. It would be nice to, but I know there's a whole new set of challenges that, that would be like, it's a new mountain to climb, So.
I know, man. I'm there with you.
I just got scared thinking about it. You see, I went off to a place. I was like, oh God. Oh, God.
You're like, oh my God, the work, the work.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work, no matter which way you go, obviously.
Right.
All right, well, thanks for chatting, man.
All right, yeah, cool, man.
Next week, we chat with Planet Mitch, which is amazing that he actually agreed to do my podcast. So we connected on Twitter, which is an awesome place for singles. But anyway, Jesus Christ. All right, so next week, Planet Mitch. I'm sorry it took so long to even release this latest podcast. I'm a fucking lazy bastard. But here you go. I did it. And next week, stay tuned. It's going to be awesome. Bye.